The fact that Flow then shares this information wherever you need it to go is crucial. And so that means if you need Flow to push information back into your Ignition ecosystem, check, or back to your historian, check, or into another database like a SQL database or another application like a BI tool. But in today's demo, you're going to show us how to bring that into the cloud. And Snowflake, is that what you're going to demonstrate?
That's correct.
Okay.
Cool. So I've created a Snowflake database, very simple. It's called Flow. Within that Flow database within Snowflake, I've got my data schema here. And within that schema, I've created a little integration table. Very simple little table. It literally gives me the entry ID of how many entries I'm pushing into it, the start and the end period of the data that I'm pushing. And then I've created a little object in the table. So that will be a JSON blob that I'm going to send across that will have all my contextualized information associated with that. If I go and look at the table now, this is just a select statement from that data. There's no results, so there's nothing getting pushed to this right now. So how do I now tell Flow to take this regression points that I've created and push it out to Snowflake? We spoke about it as the data sinks that we can go and add to Flow. And just like I have this notion of different sources of data coming into Flow, I can have different types of sinks that goes out. We call them consumers. In this case, I've created a Snowflake database consumer, but I could have pushed it to a Microsoft event, or I could have pushed it to an AWS Kinesis stream, or I could have just pushed it into another SQL database. So we have, and again, also to potentially just an MQTT broker. So we've got all these different places that we can then push the data out to from Flow's side. So I've got this Snowflake database here. Again, it will just show you what is the data schemas and tables that's available within Snowflake, and there's the definition, the schema definition. The nice thing about this is I don't need to have a fixed schema. This schema that's defined within Snowflake, you can go and configure, and we will just push the data into your designated schema. Now, again, I'm not going to do it to each and every one of my wells here. I'll do it on the template. So I will go to my production template here, my prediction that I've just created, and then this 2-hourly regression template of mine, I have the capability to go and configure integration. So I will go to this Snowflake integration. I will drag it onto this, and then I will have the capability to go and write queries. What will be my insert queries, or my out to mimic my actual schema that I've created. Now, I've done this just before. So again, in my prediction here on my hourly to hourly regression that I'm doing, I've added in the integration, and I'm going to deploy this out to start pushing data into that Snowflake database. Important with this is that I do have the capability to backfill. So I can go and push historical data that's already sitting within Flow, and I can go and push it out. So I can go and give it a deploy command to start pushing it out, and it will start pushing the data every hour as there's new data coming in, or potentially old data that changed. We will then re-push with this mechanism.
And you could batch that into different timing intervals as well if you found it to be more economic to move data in daily batches or weekly batches, correct?
Correct. Based on the time frame of the KPI, we can then push daily values or hourly values. In this case, I'm doing minutely values. So let's execute this, and there we go. So we've got some data getting pushed here. Entry of the data point, the period start for which 5 minutes this period is, and then here's that little measure object that now has the description, the hierarchical name of where it sits in the Flow model, the interval, it's minutely, the name that it's this 2-hourly regression that I'm doing, what is the quality of the point, the unit of measure, and the actual value itself. So all of this metadata is then associated with that point. If I had an event or some more context added, obviously this row of context added to this point will just grow. But yeah, that's how we share the data out and then push it into the technologies that wants to consume this data out of Flow as well.
And so additional context, just can you give some examples, and maybe not just in the oil and gas example, but like what other type of context might you be able to, or might you kind of be added?
In this case, I could have added the context of the batch that's coming in, right? So the batch number of crude as an example. Downtime. If I have an event that's tracking downtime of a piece of equipment, I could have added the context of the reasons, the discipline that downtime is associated with. Was it a micro or a macro stop event causing that downtime? So all of that additional method. Who was on shift? What shift was it? Was it shift A or B or C? So all of that type of context to answer more of those questions, we can then add and slice onto our data as well, and then obviously provide that context to the other systems as they need it.